BYU is 3-0 against the Pac-12. And Jake, I don't think it's accidental. I think we are seeing BYU play the best football in the modern era of BYU. Really, obviously, I think if you go back all the way to Bronco Mendenhall's days at BYU, I don't think there was a team that played at this level against this kind of competition. Kalani Sitake, Jake, is pulling all the right strings.
Yeah, I mean, this team is better than last year's team. Let's just get it out there. Let's just say it. Let's normalize it. Let's get comfortable with it because this team is beating quality Pac-12 teams. Everybody said on Friday, oh, well, like I saw all over Twitter on Friday, oh, well, ASU is going to Provo, and they're going to show them what a real talent gap looks like. They're going to show them what real football speed looks like. And all I have to say is BYU took over that game and handled business. And, to me, I just think when you are 3-0 against the Pac-12, you win the Holy War. You've beaten both of the Arizona schools, and you're off to this great start. I just don't know that you could ask for much better. And I think, to me, the reason this year's team is better than last year's team, and frankly is better than Utah this year by a pretty good margin, is because of the combination that they have on offense. You've got two backs who, as you've said many times, are the cliche mix of lightning and thunder. You've got one that's more of a speedy guy who can really get north and south, and you've got another guy who is more of a wrecking ball, who wants to play physical football, who wants to get in there and run you over. And I think that, to me, is what's allowing them to have so much success, because when you can run like that, that's just going to open up the passing game. And the other thing I would say is this team is getting real comfortable with how they start games. They start games a little conservatively. They start by running it a lot, even if that means a couple of 3-and-outs. They're committed to the run early. And then somehow, some way, about halfway through the second quarter, what happens? You start opening it up. You start taking shots. You start getting points on the board. And all of a sudden, you're going into halftime feeling great about yourself. And I think it's a great recipe for success. Now, the question is, as we work through this schedule, who's going to be able to stop them on the ground? That's the question, because that's when I really think their first challenge will be. When they play a team that stops them from running the football consistently, then we will see BYU's true colors on the football field.
Yeah, and I think that's the shocking part about, the Holy War, the Utah matchup, is that BYU wore Utah out. I think it's no longer some kind of neat little trick. I mean, we absolutely saw BYU's offensive line push that ASU line around. I mean, the effort, the energy. Obviously, there were signature moments in this win for BYU. Tyler Algier with the punch out was clearly a moment that I think we've all recognized as one of the greatest plays, arguably in the history of BYU football.
Yeah.
I think you look at the way that Romney comes in after Jaren Hall gets hurt, almost falls down, and then throws the touchdown. Like, how do you explain that touchdown pass?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the balls it took to make the throw only were trumped by the balls it took to make the call to make the throw. I mean, it is remarkable to me the way that things have broken. And I guess the question here is it luck or is it quality meeting preparation? And that's what I think it is. This was very clearly a BYU team that was prepared to take on Utah and ASU. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt that these men were ready to play football. They knew largely what was coming. You look at the way Jaden Daniels has played, and I thought Jaden played fine the other night. BYU did a better job of inflicting their game plan against Jaden Daniels than he did of the opposite. There's just no way to slice it any longer. BYU is legitimate, and I think the only question that you have left to ask about BYU football, Jake, is just how far can BYU go? Because you're going to go up against a South Florida team this week, and this is where you worry about letdowns. This is the letdown game. If there was one on this schedule, it wasn't in front of 60,000 fans in Las Vegas. It wasn't the Holy War. It was not ASU coming in with, a lot of hype and a lot of confidence. It's USF.
Yeah.
You're the 16th ranked team in the country, or 15th ranked team in the country now. Like, you have USF coming in a game that you very clearly are going to be favored in, and a game that you should very clearly win. I think this is the one where you worry about a letdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, this USF game, if you just pull up their schedule, this USF game is really the key to getting to double digit wins on the season, because if you win this game, which you should win this game, there's no question about it. If you win this game, now there is a clear path to 10, maybe even 11 wins. Now, don't get me wrong, you still got some tough opponents on the schedule, right? I mean, you're going to see
Yep.
Baylor, you're going to see Washington State. Obviously you're finishing the season with SC, which we're going to get to in a little while here on the show. So like, you still have some quality opponents on the schedule, but my main point just is, and going off of what you said, yeah, I mean, if you let down in this game and you lose to USF, like that's a bad loss. Now you've lost all your momentum. Now you have to kind of reset. Now you're 3-1 instead of 4-0, and it just, you can't have a letdown against USF. And really, based on what we've seen so far, I think the best point you made was that they were prepared to play Jaden Daniels in ASU. And I think that preparation and that level of ability to know, like, hey, how are we going to hold him in the pocket? How are we going to go about making sure that he doesn't break us off for a 50-yard run or all that stuff? That level of preparation and willingness to win shows me that Kalani and this team are all going in the right direction, which is why I don't think we'll see a letdown game or a bad loss there.
Well, I also think that there's something to be said for the way that this BYU team is going about winning games. I mean, if we're being honest, they're going about it with a balanced attack. They can run the ball to win. They can throw the ball to win. Now, Jaren Hall says he just had the wind knocked out of him, but you're seeing now that they have depth. That throw by Baylor Omni at the end of the game, I mean, that's the stuff of legends. I mean, one pass to win the game, and he made it.
Yeah.
I mean, they have twos and threes now that can come in and contribute. You're two deep in just about every skill position. You're four deep at the running back, at the wide receiver. Isaac Rex finally showed up. I think somebody finally told him that the season started this week. I mean, unbelievable performance after unbelievable performance out of BYU Cougars. But here's my question, and I guess this is the crux of the matter here. Why is BYU not getting the respect that I think that they have so clearly earned? And the thing that I find so fascinating is all of a sudden, it was Arizona, and this is an off year for Utah, and Arizona State was overrated. Maybe, and I know this is crazy, but maybe, just maybe, BYU is better than all three of those teams. And maybe, just maybe, this team's legit. And maybe they have an actual opportunity with what's in front of them and what this schedule shapes up to be. Maybe, Jake, they have a chance to have one of those special seasons,
right,
that you were never going to have last year because of COVID and, the build up to it and the circumstances. And I mean, and by the way, this was another conversation that was had on Twitter on Saturday night. I don't think there's any question that this year's team is exponentially far better than last year's team, in my opinion. I think they're just better.
Yeah, but I don't have any doubt about that.
Why do you think this BYU team is not getting the respect, though?
Yeah, because I think, as much as here locally, like, as much as everyone knows that, this, BYU football is legit, I think that BYU football nationally is viewed as sort of like like a try-hard school, or like a school that is always in the news, but they're just getting lucky or whatever. I don't know why it's viewed like that, or why BYU is viewed like that, but they are. I mean, that's just how it's always been, and I think that's how it's always going to be. And I think that for BYU, we've talked about this for a while. It's not good enough just to start your season 3-0, right? Like, which you have against all Pac-12 talent. It's not good enough just to do that, because everyone can say, oh, well, it was Arizona, down year for Utah. Like, there's built-in excuses. The thing that I think is really going to start to set them up is, like, if you go to USC November 27th and you are undefeated, let's just say they're undefeated, and they have if they beat USC in Los Angeles, at that point, then they're going to have to be in the college football playoff conversation. They're going to have to be. Like, there's not a choice, and that's the kind of thing that I think BYU has to do to kind of get over the hump of all these haters and all of the people who say, oh, well, they just got lucky. That to me is what I think it's going to take. And I'm not going to sit here and say that that this year's team is going to go undefeated or that they're ready for that yet. But what I do know is that they have this balanced attack, and when you have a quarterback back there who's dual threat, that really opens up the field for you, and that's what I think makes this team better than last year's team. I love Zach Wilson. He didn't have a great weekend, obviously, but what he did at BYU is legendary stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact is Jaren Hall is a better runner than Zach Wilson.
I think so, and I think by the time this whole conversation is over, I think you have an opportunity for Jaren Hall to have a better, overall career than Zach Wilson had. Now, does he end up number 2 in the draft? I don't know, and frankly, at this moment, I really don't care. But what I do know is what's in front of this group of men is significant. I mean, when you're talking about having to go up to Logan to take on USU, that's no walk in the park. I think when you look at, Boise, Baylor, the back-to-back in mid-October of Baylor and Washington State, those are 2 difficult games back-to-back just because of the travel. I mean, Rolovich is probably going to be fired by that point because Washington State's not a good football team, frankly, at this point. But then it's Virginia, and all the emotion, and Broncos coming back to Provo, and, you're going to have all of that. And then it's Idaho State, Georgia Southern, and then you go to USC. I think it is really fascinating to me to see how this team will grow and develop as every week in the season goes on, because it's inevitable as you play the level of talent that BYU has played these first 3 weeks. You're just a different football player going into week 4 than you were going into week 1. You're a different football player. I mean, these kind of games impact you at a very deep level as a competitor. And when you've come out of this and you're now, hopefully it ended Saturday night, but you're standing here basking in the glory of being 3-0. You show up for church on Sunday morning a different cat.
Yeah. Like
there's a different, swag in your step. And it'll be interesting to see how they show up, Saturday night. This is a huge football game for this team. I cannot understate the need to just, let the last 3 weeks go.
Yeah.
That season's over now. Now you're into a new season, and this USF game is incredibly important as an independent. If you want access to the playoffs, you've got to go undefeated. And as an independent at BYU's level, if you want access to the playoff, you got to go undefeated. And that's the only goal here. And you can't have the Coastal Carolina letdown that you had last year. You just can't. And I take nothing away from Coastal Carolina. BYU should have won that game. They just weren't prepared, because how could you prepare for that game? There was no way to. That's why this season's different. And listen, I understand that there is a lot of animosity in this state when it comes to football, but it's unequivocal now. BYU's the best football team in the state of Utah. There is no doubt about that. And we're going to get to the Utes here in 5 minutes, but they've earned your respect. Now, whether you choose to respect BYU's on-field performance, that's up to you. But if you're going to continue to deny what BYU has done this season, I think it's just foolish at this point. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like BYU. You don't have to respect BYU. But you have to recognize that they're 3-0 against Arizona and 2 of the best teams in the Pac-12, in ASU and Utah. You have to pay them their due there. And I don't know why it is. I don't. I mean, from Ute fans, I guess I get that.
Yeah.
Nationally, I think people will look at BYU as a fluke. And as every week goes on, I think if you host Boise on the 9th of October and you are going into that game 5-0, I think you're going to be a top 10 team in the country.
Yeah, the goal should be, in my opinion, to get to Baylor 6-0, right? I mean, that should be the goal.
Yeah.
That's when I look at this, I say, okay, we're through the ringer that is the beginning of the schedule, because it is. I mean, no matter how you slice it, you can't have it both ways. Hey, it's P5 teams. You can't say, hey, it's P5 teams, it's a quality schedule, but then when BYU wins, say, oh, well, it's a fluke. So in my opinion, hey, you just beat 3 P5 teams out of the Pac-12, you're 3-0. Great. I completely agree with you you got to get off that high now, and you got to get back to humble pie and chin down and nose to the grindstone kind of mentality. And I look at the schedule and I just say, okay, should beat South Florida, you should beat Utah State, you should beat Boise, right? Those are, if you're legit, if that 3-0 is indicative of who this football team really is, they should win these next 3 games, in my opinion. And you should be 6-0 going to Baylor. And if that's the case, okay, now you're talking about a special team, because after Baylor, like if you beat Baylor, now you're cruising into SC. And that's the game that's going to, it's going to be the same setup as last year. If you're undefeated going to SC, and we're going to get to them, but if this team is undefeated going to SC, there is going to be chaos at the end of the college football calendar. I'm just telling you now, it's going to be chaos.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's get some of your comments in here. Tanner Plummer says, morning, guys. BYU fan CJ says, hashtag go Cougs, suck at Utes. Okay. Okay. Dane says, morning, boys. What's up, Dane? Greg Hawkins, how the heck are you? He says, this is the worst timeline. I know. Eric C says, Aztecs all day.
Dude. Bro.
Got to give it up for Brady Hoke and the Aztecs.
Yeah.
Tanner Plummer says, this team was better than last year's team. I don't know about that. It's too early to tell right now, but as the season progresses, that could be the case. Oh, they're much better. They're balanced. I don't think last year at any point you were able to throw and run the football equally. And right now, this BYU football team can run the ball at will. They can throw the ball at will. You have receivers on the outside. The emergence of Isaac Rex, breaking
Finally.
out, that's a huge win for BYU. They need Isaac Rex has to be a focal point of this offense for them to truly break through their ceiling. I mean, he is, without Isaac Rex, this team is good, not great offensively.
Well, and what are we really saying about this team? Like when you say that about BYU, what I really think, what I hear, and what comes to my mind is they're just better on the lines, on both sides of the ball. They're better on the offensive line. They're better on the defensive line, and I think that that really might be Kalani's best job so far, like best year over year improvement on the team. Because I remember times last year where it was the Zach Wilson show, and that's about it. And that's how they were winning football games. And so, I guess to me, I just look at, I don't even look at the fact that they won the first 3 games. I look at how they won those games. You're pushing Utah around. You're pushing Arizona State around. You're battling in the trenches. So I don't have any doubt that they're better than last year's team, but it is early. There's no doubt about that. You've played 3 games. It is early, but I do think they're better than last year's team. I do.
Yeah, and I think the proof will be in the pudding on that for sure. Let's see. Greg Hawkins says, BYU isn't getting the respect because they haven't been consistent enough over the past 10 years. They could turn it around easily with 3-4 competitive seasons in the Big 12. But are we talking about a decades-long timeline now to earn respect? I mean, who's been good for a decade? How many college football teams have been
like 3 or 4?
Like maybe.
Yeah, like 3 or 4. And that's why they're always there. That's why Alabama's always there. That's why Ohio State is always there. Like if you look at Clemson, this is the first year that Clemson's really been terrible, like not good, and they've lost a lot of talent. And I think, the Clemson situation should give you a lot of respect for how hard it is to be a great program year in and year out.
And it is. Yeah, I mean, why is Clemson universally respected?
Because I think they've been good, and now they're kind of getting the
I
benefit
think
of the
it
doubt.
is 3-4 years in a row that you have to be good, and then you have to take that leap forward. And usually in that year where you take the leap forward, that's where the respect comes, and I think that's where BYU is.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot in the church. I think there's a lot in the reputation. I think there is a lot about BYU that will prevent them from getting the respect that they've probably earned already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of that's built in. Josh Lovren says, can we praise and give credit to BYU for beating Pac-12 teams while saying the Pac-12 stinks? But see, I think that's a backhanded compliment. I think BYU has beaten 3 teams. Arizona is not a good football team. I think they're not the worst team in the Pac-12 anymore, by the way. Arizona State and Utah are arguably 2 of the best teams in the Pac-12. Not arguably, they are. Utah was arguably the best team in the Pac-12.
At the time.
So, in my mind, I am not going to downgrade BYU's wins by saying the Pac-12 sucks. Has the Pac-12 gotten off to a good start? No. The Chip Kelly ride's probably over at UCLA. I mean, that like this past weekend, I mean, they USC alone that game. Obviously, and again, Washington State is what it is, and Rolovich is a cock. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't think the Pac-12 not being great it should impact the respect level that BYU's gotten. You've given up 16, 17, and 17. In college football, do you know how hard it is not to give up 3 scores? Like, do you understand how difficult that is? And for BYU to do that 3 straight weeks, to beat ranked opponents in back-to-back weeks has not happened at BYU in a decade.
Well, and I think that's the best
Has
way
it
to say
happened? It may have been the first time ever. Like, I mean, this team's earned the respect. There's no doubt about that. Are they Alabama? No. Are they, whoever? They're not. But that doesn't mean that they haven't earned your respect. That's just my opinion, though. Josh says, we can't fault BYU for their schedule falling apart with Utah sucking. ASU looks bad, and Arizona is worse than NAU. Okay, Arizona is not worse than NAU. ASU, how did ASU look bad? When has ASU looked bad? Because they didn't look bad against BYU. BYU was just a better football team. I mean, Jaden Daniels is a hell of a quarterback. So this whole idea that all of a sudden they look bad, they didn't look bad.
Did the Algier play make ASU look bad? No. That was just a hell of a play.
He made a choice to make an effort.
Yeah,
you got beat because BYU made a larger effort than you did. You were in this game through 3.5 quarters. So I don't know. I don't know, like all the penalties, and this is the other thing that I think people don't want to talk about.
Yes.
The home field advantage for BYU is legit.
Yes.
I mean, when you cause, what was it, 18 penalties?
Yeah, and I think at
16 or 15 or 16 accepted penalties?
Yeah, and at one point, and I think it was in the third quarter, when they were backed up there.
3 straight false starts.
3 straight?
3 straight false starts.
And that just tells you how much chaos it is. And the real ball buster of that situation is Jaden had made a throw to get them out to, I think it was like the 23-yard line. And then you just have 1, 2, 3, and it just backs you right back up to where you were.
Yeah, you broke BYU's spirit with a big first down, and then false start. And it's because, the student section for BYU was loud.
Yeah.
That whole stadium was loud.
Yeah.
And Arizona State couldn't handle that pressure. And to me, that's why this isn't that Arizona State's bad, because they didn't look bad. They look like a team that hadn't seen this quality yet, and they had no idea and no way to prepare for this kind of fan noise.
Yeah, and in Phoenix, the media, I was looking this morning, there are several headlines in Phoenix about how, this loss exposed issues with ASU. And I think that's harsh. I agree with you. I think when you roll up to Provo, you're playing at altitude, number one, so that's going to immediately make it harder for you. But then number two, yeah, BYU is a good team this year.
But the other thing is, you haven't seen, Jaden Daniels has never seen a crowd like this.
Yeah.
He's never seen a crowd like this. Think about it. When's the last time before Saturday night Jaden Daniels had played in a hostile environment?
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's been a long, long time. And that's why I say you have to tip your cap to BYU. It's not that Arizona State looked bad, because they didn't. BYU's a better football team. And for whatever reason, people don't want to say that. It is what it is. Daryl Adams says, can they get college game day? I mean, I could see college game day being at USC for the last game of the year. I could see that, because I think, frankly, I just don't know. I don't know where USC is going to be at that point. Jackson Dart absolutely saved their season. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The Keaton Slovis injury is one of those things where you're going to look back on USC and you're going to say, well, their fortunes changed the moment that Keaton Slovis got hurt. Because we've questioned Keaton Slovis for some time. Everybody called him elite. I think he He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. But if you look at teams that change quarterbacks, look at Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Utah's quarterback change, their fortunes immediately turned around. I look at Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart came in and absolutely took the bull by the horns. I don't think Keaton Slovis will ever play another down of football at USC as long as Jackson Dart's healthy. I don't think Keaton Slovis is ever the starter at USC again. That's how good Jackson Dart was. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's going to have to see some things more clearly because, frankly, again, Nick Rolovich is a cock.
Mm-hmm.
And that
the coronavirus.
He's not a good coach, and he's not worth all this. And so Washington State got exposed.
I think that's HIPAA.
Jackson Dart's a hell of a quarterback. That kid's arm, his ability to run, he says his knee is fine if you didn't see it. Jackson Dart goes in, throws the ball over the field, hurts his knee, and then limps around for the rest of the first half. Came out in the third quarter with a knee brace on and everything seemed fine. After the game, he said he'd be good to go. He'd be ready to be at practice on Monday. As did Keaton Slovis, who had a neck injury, got an x-ray. Turns out he's fine. He'll be at practice as well. You're not taking the ball from Jackson Dart.
No.
It's over.
Well, and I think, too, the other thing to consider is, obviously with Clay Helton not being there anymore, the allegiance to Slovis is no longer there. I think I would not, honestly, man, I don't think that they will name Jackson the starter on Monday. What I think is going to happen is there's going to be a quarterback competition for a couple of days, and then he's going to get named the starter on like Thursday, Friday.
And I wouldn't tell anybody who's starting if I'm USC. Like, why would you?
Yeah, why would you? Yeah.
I listen. Again, I will just simply say that when you look at BYU, because I do want to get to Utah here, but when you look at BYU was a better football team than ASU on Saturday night. Are they more talented? No, I don't think so. ASU is incredibly fast.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, that team has some thoroughbreds. Problem is, I just don't think that impacted BYU the way people thought it would. And the reason we felt like BYU was going to win a close game was because they're deeper than they've ever been. Certainly in the last 10 years.
And they're well coached.
Yeah.
Again, can't
they're
emphasize that
disciplined
enough. They are, again, you're right. They're not more talented per se than a lot of these teams, but they're executing on their game plan. They came in prepared and understanding, okay, this is how, with the guys we have and the team we have, this is how we have to go about winning this football game. And then you combine that with, what I would just call a hustle / a heart play out of Algier, and several of the other plays that were made by guys. When you take a well-coached team and add those kind of plays, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Well, and by the way, I think the other thing is that you can't teach the Tyler Algier play.
Yeah.
Like, that tells you that there is a culture at BYU that requires that kind of effort.
Yeah.
That is what that says to me. And I think that goes into preparation, that goes into attitude, and that goes into the mantra of what culture is all about. Because culture is one of those words that a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, we have great culture in our locker room. Well, how many kids in this country are making the play that Tyler Algier made?
And what's funny is he'd played a lot of linebacker in his life.
Yeah.
Because of his size. And a lot of people were talking about the fact that, maybe he doesn't make that play if he doesn't have, defensive training, but he does. He knows how to strip people. And it's crazy. You can
and see, this is the other thing. When Utah makes a position change, people are like, oh, it's brilliant. Holy fuck, that. I mean, can you believe that Kyle Whittingham took that offensive lineman and he made him a safety, and oh my God. Okay, so Tyler Algier was a linebacker that they made a running back. And now he's one of the better running backs in the country, I mind you. And he makes an incredible play. And people are like, oh, it's luck. The guy was out of bounds. His mom had just happened to fertilize a powerful piece of sperm. This is luck. I'm telling you, it's not luck. That's preparing. That's being ready. That's selling out. That's doing everything that you can do to win a football game.
By the way, just want to point out last thing, and I know we got to get to Utah. On the Algier play, Notice who he was outrunning right next to him. Who was right next to him? Jaren Hall. Ran right past Jaren Hall.
busted his ass.
and got to him. And I don't care if he was out of bounds. Was he out of bounds? Yes, absolutely. No doubt about it. Definitive video evidence he was out of bounds. There's no question
Don't
about
care.
it. I don't
But
give a
was he
damn.
out of bounds though?
No, because they didn't call it.
Thank
so
you.
I just don't think that it is. I just don't think it's right to discount them. No, they're not the best team in the country. Yes, do they have their flaws? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're 3-0, and I think I think you got to give them the respect that they deserve. Is Alabama 3-0? Yeah, Alabama looked pretty shitty doing it against Florida.
Yeah,
looked
they
pretty
did.
crappy doing it.